Hi there, good morning. Welcome to today's midweek market analysis. So as usual, we're going to start off with the dollar index over here first. Okay, so first thing first, of course, the market for this week has been relatively quiet and slow. Two reasons, of course, yesterday we have the US holiday, and this Friday we do have a very important NFP data coming in. So usually the market would tend to be slower, building up into the anticipation of the news release. Now, having said that, some of these opportunities I think it's quite clear, especially based on the pattern and structure that price is developing. And you can definitely utilize this to trade in confluence with the NFP, right? So you can actually use some of this directional bias to focus for the news trading technique if you are interested in kind of capitalizing on the potential catalyst coming in from NFP. So first up, we have the dollar index over here. Okay, so what we're seeing here is basically we may have completed, right, the 1 2 3 4 5, and this three-wave structure seems to be done as well, with price putting in the top at 103.5. We did see a small little bit of an impulse push down here. Price seems to be doing a little bit of a consolidation. So with this, we are anticipating more downside, potentially back to retest that low at 101.9T. So a very simple technique, if you're looking at this pattern, this structure, to capitalize on a news trade entry, that will be to utilize a breakout technique. So if we are looking at bearish bias, and of course you can identify a decent low as your potential breakout entry point, and your stop can then be the recent high based on the breakout entry that you are looking at. Okay. So dollar index is quite clear. This week here going into NFP, this just continue to consolidate, which likely it will. Then we are bearish bias on the dollar for this week. So transiting that to the euro, if the dollar is bearish, then naturally the euro here we're looking for more upside. The only slight difference here is the structure on euro is not as clear as the DXY. Now we did have this low here breaking that previous low, which potentially can say the three-wave pattern is indeed complete, and of course this can start to go higher. So that's the part where you can see two arrows, where basically there's a good possibility this would take off from here. There's also a good chance this may bounce lower before the pushback. So two ways to get involved and look at this trade potential. One is of course a breakout technique. Okay, that would then leverage on the news catalyst. You can look for reference high as your breakout entry to buy. And suppose if price just decides to come down slower after the news release in a corrective fashion, then this area becomes an opportunity to look for buy trade as well. Okay, so euro is not as clear in terms of the dollar potential NFP kind of like opportunity that you can capitalize on. If you're looking at maybe a clearer structure in one of the major pairs, then it would be the pound dollar. Because pound dollar, you can see here the structure that we're seeing is quite clear. 1 2 3, and of course this little bounce here is pretty impulsive in nature, and likely in the next 1 or 2 days we'll probably get something like this, and then we'll get a very decent push to the upside if everything falls in place. So GBP/USD, I would say there's a good chance we may see one more drop to complete this as a potential expanding flat on a smaller time frame. So do look out around the area at 1.2665, 1.2640, and that would give you a decent buy here as a retracement. The alternative, of course, is to wait until perhaps closer towards NFP and then utilize a breakout when the news is being released. If dollar weakens, then you can get a very nice little trade to the upside. So this is quite clear on GBP/USD, definitely bullish bias as long as price remains above this little low at 1.2590. Now, Aussie dollar here, we are generally neutral, but I'm starting to see a little bit of a bullish opportunity, at least for a shorter term, right? So this one here can compare to this, of course, is corrective in nature, so we don't expect this to just keep going higher. But what can develop over here is if the price does a little bit of a pullback correctively, then there's a good chance we may see this as a bigger correction of a 1, 2, 3, right? And this can be a short-term buy opportunity. Now, I think Aussie dollar may not give us a direct trade opportunity within this week itself, especially, the market's going to be just slow until NFP is being released. So Aussie dollar likely is going to be maybe an opportunity going forward into next week. Okay, so there's nothing to rush in for Aussie dollar right now. I think the primary focus to me is still very much on like euro dollar and pound dollar. Now, dollar CAD is another one that I think it's worth focusing on. Okay, because Friday again, aside from the NFP, we do have the Canadian labor market data. Okay, so in terms of dollar CAD over here, okay, so in terms of dollar CAD over here, right, what we want to look out for, give it a while, I think my chart is loading. Alright, okay. So in terms of dollar CAD over here, as I mentioned, it's worth mentioning because we do have the NFP as well as the Canadian labor market data this Friday. And in terms of price structure, it's pretty clear and clean. After this diagonal, we do have a very strong little impulsive push, which breaks off the diagonal structure. And as of now, we're seeing a little bit of a corrective pullback right over here. So that kind of gives us an opportunity to look for a buy trade because this probability of a setup is higher chance to the upside. So this is a little bit counter direction to the dollar index, but again, I always highlight that whenever we look at the chart, we look at them independently because the dollar can be weakening, but if let's say the Canadian weaken more significant than the dollar, there's a potential of this pair going higher as well. So we're very much focused on the pattern and the instruments that we're looking independently. So right now, there's a good probability of upside, and we're definitely looking at that as a trade opportunity. So of course, you can look for aggressive entry around 1.20, as well as 1.18, 1.3180 for potential retracement buy. Of course, alternatively is to look for a breakout above this flat pattern development, according to the release of NFP. So this is another opportunity to definitely pay attention to. Okay, so you can keep an eye on that. Now for dollar yen, generally I'm still neutral onto this, but the slight bias here is I'll be more interested in the sell opportunity. Okay, but what we want to see is essentially a first impulsive break first, right? So we don't really have that at least for now. So the idea of this is to simply give it time. Maybe NFP will give us some clue in terms of like how the market is going to develop next. But for now, I think dollar yen is just simply a pair where you just want to put it aside, come back in the future, because whatever is developing here, I think is not worth really paying too much attention to. Now, then we have the gold trade, okay, XAU. So over here, gold, while I'm still slightly neutral, but overall we're more interested in the upside for now. This little move here is not very fast and impulsive, okay, but it kind of did a little bit of a bounce off that low, and if we can get a corrective retracement and pullback, okay, the idea here is definitely you want it to be coming down slow, then we may start to look for upside. Now, whether the price is going to break off and keep going higher, or we're just going to see some kind of a resistance around this and then come back down, we need to see how the price is going to react at the top of this. Okay, so any potential buy would naturally be, at least for the short term first, you want to monitor how price is going to react here. If it doesn't, if it's not able to break above this impulsively, then you want to be very careful, because this can just simply be a corrective structure within the bigger one for move down. Right, so that's on gold. Personally, I think there are definitely better opportunities to focus on within this week, namely like pound dollar, dollar CAD. So for me, I think the focus would not very much be on gold. Okay, S&P in general, I would say wait for a pullback. Okay, naturally you wouldn't want to be buying at the top. whether the market is putting in double top as of now. We won't know, okay, because this can easily reject back down from there. The idea again is whenever we see an impulse push, if you want to get involved in the buy, at least wait for a corrective pullback. Now the alternative structure over here that can develop is a 1, 2, 3 or ABC structure like this for an expanding. Therefore, it can really come back and retest this low before the push up. So overall, we're just maintaining a neutral and be patient. The direction that we're interested in is not on the downside, but it's definitely on the upside. It's just simply waiting for a better time to get involved in a buy trade. The last one here is BTC. Okay, so same thing here. You can see a very strong little push. This little correction here seems to be a little bit small. So for me, I'm personally anticipating a bigger one. So we are definitely bullish on this. We're definitely interested to buy. The idea again is to just wait for a setup to come to us, right? So right now the correction, as I mentioned, is a bit small. So we're gonna be a little bit patient and see if we can get a bigger corrective move before we commit to a buy trade. Okay. So that's all for me for this week's midweek. Okay, all the best to trading. Do manage your risks, and I'll see you guys in the next one.